In January, the broad-leaved woodlands are often rather empty of birds, except for small nomadic bands of tits, goldcrests, and other birds foraging for food in the bare branches. Many song thrushes have left too, but a few can often be heard tuning up with great variety and vivacity. When winter gales blow, the mistle thrush may revel in the wind. He's often known as the stormcock. Many robins leave the woodlands in autumn and winter, but some can be found singing their wistful notes in the canopy of the trees. One of the promises in early January of a spring that may still be far away is the gay chiming song of the great tit. Mainly from late January onwards, the blue tit sings a higher-pitched song. Coal tits also sing from January onwards, usually from conifers inside the broad-leaved woods. The song is sometimes superficially like that of a great tit, the repetition of a double note, but it's faster and less strident. Starling songs are regular in every month of the year, and their bill rattlings and shapeless medleys of sounds are common on still, warm January days. This one flies to a perch and then begins to sing. But beware of imitations. The starling can mimic many other birds as well as carbrakes, cats and babies. This one is imitating a European golden oriole. The wren has a loud, dramatic song with high-pitched phrases and trills. Wrens too can sing in every month of the year, including January. Here's a wren duet, with a blue tit singing as well. February usually sees the arrival on the woodland scene of the finest of the thrush's songs. that of the blackbird, with its pure fluting notes and effortless delivery. This song, that of a northern bird, is joined later by one from a song thrush. Another sound that often arises in the February woodlands, sometimes even in January, is the cooing territorial song of the wood pigeon, often accompanied by sharp wing claps. Meanwhile, the woodland chorus is growing. Wood pigeon, mistle thrush, wren, and the brisk warbling of a hedge sparrow join together in this Kent chorus. The shy stock dove has a musical, not loud song that fits the woodland scene very well and is quite persistent from February to early July. Chaffinches often return to the woods in February and March and begin their cheerful, rollicking songs like this one in the New Forest. The harsh winter call of the marsh tit is followed by the liquid ringing song at its peak in February and March. The nuthatch and tree creeper are both birds that live by searching the trees, trunks and branches for food. The tree creeper's song, heard here with that of a blackbird, consists of from 3 to 5 thin single notes followed by a sibilant flourish. The nuthatch has a wide and often confusing vocabulary which he perfects in February. Here are some slow boyish whistles followed by faster ones. The long-eared owl prefers conifers, but where it's common, it can also be found in broad-leaved woods and copses. This is its late winter moaning song. At the beginning of March, we can still hear only our resident birds in song in the woodlands. It's still too early for the summer visitors. Now blackbirds, thrushes and robins dominate the woodland scene. The carrion crow has a deep hoarse caw that often punctuates the other bird sounds of March. Sometimes in February and March you can hear a strident motor horn note from the crow as well. Rooks may often breed in small copses and along the edges of woods, where their softer calls mingle with the songs of blackbird and thrush. The guardian of the woods is the jay, whose harsh alarm cries alert all the denizens of the forest to danger. The territorial song of the great spotted woodpecker is a mechanical drumming on a suitable sounding board. Drumming can take place in every month of the year, but it's at its peak in early spring. Herons often build their nest platforms of sticks in tall trees in woods, and these resound in March with the most extraordinary noises. Tree sparrows are calling as well. At dusk and dawn from early March onwards, the woodcock starts its slow owl-like display flight known as roding. It beats its way over or between the trees with a strange amphibian-like call. A fox gives a staccato bark. As March wears on, more and more finches can be heard in and around the open woodlands. From shrub layers and scrub, the bullfinch produces a sub-song of poor quality with low piping notes and creaky phrases. The greenfinch, which usually starts to sing in March, has canary-like twitters which he sings from a tree in a glade, or in a remarkable bat-like display flight. The little redpoll really likes conifer plantations, but it can be found too in broad-leaved woods of birch and willow. It has a metallic flight call and a high trilling song, often given in flight as well. The large but elusive hawfinch sings from spring to early June, a mixture of unmusical notes, liquid sounds, and various clicking calls. March usually sees the arrival from the south of the chiffchaff, the first of the summer visitors to return, especially in lowland England. From now on, the woodland chorus will grow in strength and variety. On warm, still March days, redwings often gather in the woods before their departure to Scandinavia. Here they indulge in a gay, twittering kind of sub-song, interspersed with louder, fuller song phrases. It's an hour before an April dawn in a Northamptonshire wood. Some roosting carrion crows leave noisily for the fields. Not long afterwards, the dawn chorus begins. It's a chorus still of resident birds, as the chiffchaffs haven't woken up yet. The willow tit has a rare song that I've heard sometimes in April. It's a slow series of loud, melancholy notes reminiscent of the piping sounds of the wood warbler. In the second week of April comes the main flood from the south of the willow warblers, with their silvery liquid cadences. Slightly later than the willow warblers come the handsome male blackcaps. Their songs are pure rich warblings with clean musical intervals given from the cover of tree canopies and bushes. Towards the end of April, the garden warblers arrive back in the woods and copses. The song of the male is a sustained, clarinet-like warbling without the wavy form of the blackcap's delivery. This bird I recorded singing in the New Forest. Where the woods are open and the glades wide, you may come across the whitethroat, who sings his simple little ditty from a perch or in a dancing display flight. In oak and beech woods, dense copses and thorn brakes below 400 feet above sea level, and south of a line from Devon to South Yorkshire, you may find the nightingale. His song is rounded and remarkable in its quality. It can be heard from mid-April to June and quite regularly in the daytime. Singing also from mid-April is the gaily-coloured redstart, another migrant from the south. Its song is a pleasant run of warbled notes with a rather weak ending. Where there are clearings in the forests and woods, the tree pivot may often be found. He starts to sing from the top of a special display flight and then parachutes down to a perch, singing all the time. The cuckoo also arrives in April and can still be heard calling in some woods, but this is less often than it used to be. With April at its full, the woodland choruses have grown into rich and delightful experiences. May reigns in hawthorn lands, and the lowland woods are full of birdsong. In a Suffolk copse, redstart, nightingale, willow warbler, wren, wood pigeon, pheasant, and green woodpecker vie with the domestic cock. Farther north, in an exposed coastal wood, a song thrush sings to the accompaniment of rooks and chiding wren. In the heronry, young birds are now being fed in the high nests, and the wood is full of raucous noise. In May, the wood warbler returns to some of the mature woods of oak and beech. In a New Forest beech glade, where rain is falling and redstarts singing, a male wood warbler sings his two types of song, a cadence of clear whistles and a high shivering trill. Blackbird, chaffinch, cuckoo and pheasant are joined often in May among the thorn bushes by the turtle dove, with his placid purring notes. A May visitor to some of the wilder, more westerly and northerly woods of oaks and birch is the pied flycatcher. This song is a repetition of a double note followed by a liquid arpeggio. This bird I recorded in an oak wood in a valley in Yorkshire. The woods are now busy with incubation and the care of the young. A long-tailed tit gives the alarm near its nest. In a hole in a thorn, a great tit on her nest hisses an explosive warning like that of a snake. By the middle of May, the sparrowhawk has laid her full clutch of eggs, and she flies off calling in alarm when an intruder goes too near to the nest. In the north of England, in mid-May, the kestrel begins her breeding season. The high chatter can be heard around the breeding place and outside the nesting season. The long-eared owls now have a brood, and the adult comes in to visit the 4-day-old nestlings. In 1967, the little serin bred in England for the first time. In Europe, it's a bird of sunny forest edges and groves. The song is a jingle of rushed, sibilant chitters and trills. June sees the turn in the woodland year, and the bird choruses begin slowly to fade away. In a glade in a Scottish wood, a chaffinch and a yellowhammer sing a duet. The dawn chorus now in the heronwood consists of cuckoo, robin and wood pigeon. Once, in high summer, I listened to a rare stranger from the eastern half of Europe singing in a Northamptonshire wood. It was an icterine warbler, a bird that may often have been overlooked in Britain. Here are some of its typical notes. The very similar melodious warbler, with a more westerly European range, has a less vehement song. The red-backed shrike is now a rare annual summer visitor to parts of southern England. It favours commons, thornbrakes and woodland edges, where in June it may sing for long periods. Broad-leaved woods in western and northern Britain are often the home of a pair of buzzards. Their mewing cries can be heard high over the canopy of the tree in which they have their nest. The very rare honey buzzard is a summer visitor with an annual breeding population of from only 1 to 9 pairs. It's a more silent bird than the buzzard, but it has a characteristic call on the wing. The young kestrels have hatched, and now, in June, the hen feeds them on the nest. An adult starling flies into its hole to feed her young. June is a good month for young birds in the woodlands. Young jays demand to be fed. An adult great spotted woodpecker calls as it tries to satisfy its own clamorous young. June dusks are the time to listen for the sustained rising and falling trill of the scarce summer-visiting nightjar, a trill with as many as 1900 notes a minute in it. July is the month of dying music, and as the birds drop into silence, the hum and murmur of insects begin to take their place. In the woods, the wren is dominant, while a few wood pigeons still coo and jackdaws call. A greenfinch with her free-flying brood gives the predator alarm as a fox or cat slips through the wood. That graceful and rare falcon, the hobby, is still breeding in July. If anyone walks through the wood, she may leave in high dudgeon. The woods may lose their songs, but many are noisy with the calls of adult and young jackdaws. The cry of a single young jackdaw is often the most familiar of July woodland sounds. Young birds are everywhere, querulously seeking food and attention. A fledgling blackcap calls for food against a background of insect sound. As dusk falls on a July evening, a young tawny owl that has left the nest sits and calls. But the young sparrowhawks are still in the nest. They call with a hunger that never seems to be satisfied. By August, the woodland bird sounds have fallen almost to nothing. Many birds have left the woods for the winter. Along the hedges and the woodland edge, the yellowhammer still sings on, and greenfinch and crow still call. The robin fell silent in July, but towards the end of August he begins to sing again with a new and melancholy autumn song. With the coming of September, some of the songbirds begin to perform spasmodically once more. Here, a great tit, singing in a new forest glade in early October, sets off another one not far away. Migrant willow warblers and chiffchaffs will sing occasionally in the autumn. The linnet can be heard in every month of the year, but in the autumn his pleasant twittering often is better appreciated. Along the woodland rides and verges, the magpie sits on some tall tree and rattles away. When the elderberries begin to ripen, the starlings come into the woodlands to feed and gorge themselves. Nomadic parties of small birds wander from tree to tree in the woods, assiduously looking for food. Sometimes they come across a sleeping tawny owl and mob it unmercifully. In October, the tawny owls often hold territories, which they proclaim with their hoots. These two are listening to each other. In the more open woodlands, it may be possible to hear the eerie sound of a barn owl that's been roosting in a thorn or other bush. As the woodland year draws to its close, the woods in the daytime are pretty empty of birds. The leaf fall is over, and the boughs and branches stand stark and gaunt against the sky. Small parties of birds drift through in daytime, and it's in the evening that the woods often become noisy with birds. Starlings gather in an oak tree in the wood before leaving to roost in a conifer plantation several miles away. the light goes, a pheasant flies up into its roosting tree, and a few blackbirds scold irritably. The pheasant falls silent, but the blackbirds go on micking and scolding until it's almost dark. If there are evergreen shrubs in the wood, redwings may come in from the fields and hedgerows to join the blackbirds for the night. They add their chitooks to the sharper notes of the blackbirds. Many of the taller trees in a wood provide a safe roost at night for wood pigeons, rooks and jackdaws that fly in from the countryside around. On cold December mornings, the rooks and jackdaws stream out from their roost in long, noisy lines. And if December should bring a warm day, then a blackbird may try a bit of sub-song, hedge sparrows, wrens and starlings some more serious song-making, while the mistle thrush sends out his clarion notes from a tall elm. On certain days from October onwards through to December, a song thrush may tune up, and so the woodland bird songs have come full circle. A great modern city may seem at first sight a poor habitat for birds and other animals. Yet its heart, which may be a veritable concrete desert, can still be a home for some creatures. One of the scavengers dependent on the scraps of food left about by man is the feral pigeon, which nests on the man-made cliffs provided by buildings, bridges and church towers. It's descended from the wild rock dove of the sea cliffs. The male bird has a distinct cooing display to the hen, in which he raises his head and bows deeply. Both male and female pigeon often converse together at the nest. The hen feral pigeon has a gruff coo, a little like that of the stock dove that you can hear on the Woodland Birds disc, also in the Wildlife series. The young pigeon, or squab, has a much higher pitched note than that of the adult. Here both are calling at the nest with a certain amount of wing flapping. Another scavenger in the city is the house sparrow, which takes bread, seed and insect food if this is available. There seems to have been a decline in numbers in recent years, however. Sparrows often sit about buildings, railway stations, docks and markets, and just call to each other for quite long periods. Even in quite densely built-up areas, the loud chirp of the house sparrow is often a common sound. I've sometimes watched the strange sparrow display flights, in which several males pursue a female, and when they catch up with her, hop around with wings at the droop and the tail fanned out, calling loudly. Sparrows and feral pigeons share their city habitat with smaller numbers of starlings. These birds prefer parklands and grass in the daytime, but at night many thousands come into the heart of London, Glasgow, Belfast, Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, Newcastle and other cities to roost. Here are some starlings assembling at dusk on the Admiralty building near Horse Guards Parade in London. The starlings seek out ledges on the cliff-like faces of office blocks, arches and churches to spend the night, whistling and chattering above the roar of the traffic. The kestrel, which often feeds on sparrows, will nest on high chimneys, churches and buildings like the Langham and the Savoy Hotel in London, Westminster Abbey and the Houses of Parliament. I've often heard its shrill chatter high above the city centre. The fauna of the wholly built-up areas isn't very large, but there are often such adaptable animals as brown rats, which live in the sewers, around the docks and riverbanks. Mice are more widely distributed than rats, and the house mouse's chatter can be heard in the very centre of cities. Among other undesirable associates of man are bluebottles and houseflies. The bluebottles are scavengers like most other city animals and are also carriers of disease bacteria. Many cities have squares and parks, which provide islands of vegetation inside the built-up area, although few are as well off in this respect as London. In these green oases, more birds are to be found than in the city's heart. Here by the statue of Peter Pan in London's Kensington Gardens is an April dawn chorus of great tit, carrion crow, song thrush and blackbird. In many city squares and parks, the blackbird can be heard singing his fluent phrases. This is a woodland bird that only recently has penetrated towns. The closely related mistle thrush has increased in town parks in many places in the last few years. Sometimes you can hear one at close range giving his sub-song, a quieter version of the full territorial song. The blue tit and wood pigeon in the background can also be found in many town parks. The full song of the mistle thrush is a wild one, coming down from the canopy of some tall elm or plane tree. And here's a starling giving his imitation of the bird that you've just heard. Several kinds of woodland bird besides the blackbird, song and mistle thrushes can be found in the habitat of town park and square. These include crows, robins, chaffinches, wrens and sometimes jays. Hedge sparrows often keep close to the shrubberies from which their display notes can be heard in March. Blue tits nest in the holes of trees, as well as in street lamps, drain pipes and letterboxes. Some small towns may also have stock doves and rooks building in the trees which provide the blue tits with their homes. In the less disturbed squares and parks, the scarcer great tit may also breed. Tawny owls can live in many town parks, and they'll also visit squares where they don't in fact breed. Here's one calling above the traffic while a dog barks and a second owl hoots in the distance. Many town parks have ornamental waters and lakes. In winter, these are often visited by large numbers of black-headed gulls, which may also scavenge around city offices and railway sidings. Mallard duck nest on many park lakes, as well as on window boxes, roof gardens and river barges and bridges. Mute swans grace many town waters, like this hissing cob with a fine flotilla of piping cygnets. In these partly built-up areas, the wild mammals are few, but there are often naturalized grey squirrels from North America which take a heavy toll of young birds and plant shoots. Their strange chatters and whines can sometimes be heard high up in the canopy of a tall tree. The hedgehog can still be found in some of London's royal parks, and at night its sniffing, trundling little figure may be overlooked. Moths and butterflies often flit along the flower borders in the parks. The common field grasshopper occurs in at least 2 of London's central parks, and its short chirp can be heard in Kensington Gardens. Lying between the wholly built-up areas and the more open country and suburban districts is a transitional zone, that of the inner suburbs and gardens. Here many woodland bird species, including those of towns and town parks, have been able to adapt themselves, but some, like the warblers and woodpeckers, find it a rather uncongenial zone. In this inner area, the blackbird is often the 3rd commonest bird, singing its notes against a chorus of sparrows and other blackbirds. I live in one of these inner suburbs, Dollis Hill in northwest London. One spring I recorded a male blackbird singing his quiet, rambling sub-song on the ground in my front garden. It's a soft, sometimes continuous, sometimes halting performance, with a greater pitch range than the normal song. The starling is my second commonest bird, with some 250 pairs nesting within half a mile of my house. This starling is singing and rattling his bill on a chimney pot on my house. Listen, too, for the imitation. Carrion crows and other park birds, with goldfinches and greenfinches, will all nest in the inner suburbs. Sometimes there are more unusual visitors, like the male siskin, which came daily to my garden one winter for nearly 4 months. In March he began to sing, and here is one of his trial bursts given as he fed on seeds on my bird table. The house sparrow is usually the commonest bird in the inner suburbs. Many sit around in the gardens during the short winter days. Sometimes the sparrows establish roosts in plane trees, hawthorn bushes, and the creepers on houses. I regularly have a roost of about 60 birds in a Philadelphus in my garden. Other bird species may breed in small numbers or come as occasional visitors: jay, magpie, various gulls, and so on. In winter, common gulls may forage over the gardens for scraps or chase the black-headed gulls and so force them to give up their own morsels of food. Swifts will breed if they can gain access to roofs for nesting. Every year in July I can hear the wild screams and the rush of wings as swifts hurtle low over the rooftops in their aerial chases. The young swifts are very noisy in late July and August, calling persistently from the darkness of their rooftop homes. When the winter weather is severe, birds may be on the move. Redwings and fieldfares may come to visit gardens for hips and haws. White-fronted geese sometimes fly over the partly built-up areas in the inner suburbs. The gardens of these suburbs, with their trees, lawns, hedges and herbaceous borders, are rich in insect life. Butterflies and moths aren't uncommon. In autumn, I often have painted ladies and red admirals under my apple trees. One interesting visitor to the roses is the leaf-cutting bee, which with mechanical precision cuts out neat, smooth-edged pieces from the leaves and petals of roses to form the walls of its cells. Here's a bee flying round one of my Frau Karl-Druski roses and setting to work with its jaws. Honeybees may be kept in the gardens, and these can be seen foraging among the flowers of privet, snowberry, lime, tree of heaven, and other plants. The gentle buzz from an undisturbed hive is one of the pleasantest sounds of summer. A common high-flying visitor to my garden is the large red-tailed humblebee, which zooms in and out looking for food. Dead tree stumps, rockeries and old walls are often prospected by queen wasps looking for an underground site for a new colony. In autumn, as the weather gets colder, a fertile queen begins to look for a safe place indoors to hibernate. Many suburban gardens have small weedy pools where Anopheles mosquito larvae flourish and then reach whining maturity. Another kind of mosquito is a gnat culex, which is widespread in the London area. The last of the insects is the house cricket, an alien that lives in warm bakehouses, zoo cages, central heating plants and rubbish dumps where artificial heat is being generated. On very warm summer days, I sometimes hear these sounds of stridulating house crickets near my home. Outside the town centre, and beyond the inner suburbs, lies a belt of country, partly cultivated, with small pieces of woodland, orchards, playing fields, houses with large gardens, open spaces with undergrowth. Here such woodland birds as the warblers, nuthatch, tree creeper and great spotted woodpecker can exist, birds that you can hear on the companion Woodland Birds record in this series. Larks and lapwings can be found on the farmlands, while badgers and foxes have their homes in the woods and copses. The more open countryside of the outer suburbs has great and blue tits, nuthatches, sparrows, starlings, robins and crows. Here too are pheasants, jackdaws and thrushes, while in summer the cuckoo may add his voice to that of the chiming great tit. Some of the warblers that can be heard on the Woodland Birds record breed in the outer suburbs. Rooks too are often regular nesters, since they don't have to make those long daily journeys to open country that keep them out of the inner suburbs. Jackdaws will nest in old trees and buildings, and in many outer suburbs of towns they've shown signs of an increase. Wood pigeons are often abundant, and the wren is a very common bird. Where there are chicken runs and a few conifers, the collared dove, that exotic invader from Asia, is absolutely at home. Here against a background of clucking hens and a singing robin, you can hear the song and the harsh flight call. All three species of woodpecker may be found in the suburbs of a good number of English towns. In some places, the tree sparrow seems to be on the increase. This relative of the house sparrow, with its chestnut head and white cheek patch, likes parkland, river valleys and belts of trees. It has an incisive chipping call. On rough grassland and commons, on cultivated land and playing fields, the skylark is common, and its torrent of notes floats down to us from late winter through to high summer. Another bird nesting on airfields, farming land and river meadows is the lapwing, truly a bird of the soil. Although lapwings can often be seen flying over towns and the inner suburbs, it's in the outer zone that you'll be able to hear their lovely wild spring cries, given in a frenzied and tumbling display flight. The outer suburbs provide shelter for some animals that cannot survive nearer to the town centre. Where there are woods and large gardens, the shy badger may have his underground home or set, coming out to forage during the hours of darkness. Then perhaps you'll be able to hear a purring boar badger be greeted by his mate at some savoury source of food. Winter is the mating season for the fox, whose stronghold is in the more open country. Foxes sometimes come into the inner suburbs, but they prefer the woods, heaths and railway embankments a bit further out from town. In January and February, the scream of the vixen and the bark of the dog fox have startled many suburban dwellers. The further one moves away from the pollution of the town centre, the larger is the number of insects that can be found. In a wide range of habitats lives the meadow grasshopper, of which species 2 males can now be heard stridulating against each other. A handsome immigrant in some years is the death's head hawk moth. This magnificent insect has been found in several of London's outer suburbs. It can produce an audible squeak to frighten predators away. Frogs and toads live in many parts of London's outer suburbs, but the frog has become rather scarce with the spread of suburbia and the taking by children of its spawn. The toad can withstand drier conditions, but both species will come to garden ponds. Here are some common frogs croaking and common toads piping in a quiet spring pool. The landscape of many towns and cities has been changed in recent years by the construction of large reservoirs. These, together with stretches of town river, can provide sanctuary for numbers of waterfowl at a time when natural marshlands are rapidly disappearing. Swans, ducks and gulls will all take advantage of these refuges. Of the ducks, the mallard is the best known and the commonest, breeding by small lakes and coming in hundreds during the winter to these town waters. Captive gadwall sometimes spread onto the reservoirs around London from park stocks. The voice of the drake is a single low note. Teal are often regular visitors in winter to town reservoirs. Here they spend the day and disperse at night to feed on sewage farms and in other marshy places. The drake's call is a crisp musical note. Another common winter visitor is a diving duck, the tufted duck. The London flocks are thought to represent at least a tenth and sometimes 1/5 of the whole British winter population. St James's Park birds may come from European Russia, Siberia and Novaya Zemlya. The male has a soft whistling courtship note which can be heard in the London area. Several hundred widgeon come to the reservoirs at Staines near London each winter. The drake has a lovely slurred whistle and the duck a rolling growl. Among the mallard, teal and widgeon there are often small numbers of heavy-billed shoveler, which swim together and converse with low grunts. The chestnut and grey drake pochard are also fond of reservoirs in which they can dive for food. They're generally rather silent birds, but they can sometimes be heard, especially in March and April. Another rather silent duck visitor to the reservoirs is the golden-eye, which may come in small numbers in most years. Before the birds leave again for their winter quarters, it's often possible to hear some of their display notes. Semi-tame mute swans frequent the rivers and reservoirs in and around towns as well as the park lakes. In some winters, wild swans may come as well, especially the Buicks from the Kara Sea. These fine birds can sometimes be heard flying over on their way to the waters around London, Birmingham and other places. Many town reservoirs are used in winter as roosting places by large flocks of gulls, which fly to them in the evening from the towns where they've been foraging in the day for food. Black-headed gulls, like those we heard in the town parks, may come in thousands, together with common gulls, herring gulls and black-backed gulls. Here are some herring gulls calling in the late afternoon on an inland water. Great black-backed gulls may also assemble on the reservoirs, but in smaller numbers. Their deep, gruff voices can sometimes be heard coming over the water. Where gravel can be worked around the town, pits are dug, and in due course these become flooded. In this way, artificial lakes form with sandy deltas, open areas of stony ground, reeds, waterside vegetation and low scrub. The water often attracts great crested grebes, and the rough ground skylarks. The smaller little grebe also likes gravel pits, and here are two trilling away with a moorhen in the background. Aggressive coots can be heard chasing each other over the surface of the water. Where there's cover, moorhens will breed by still or slow-running water, and so gravel pits are favourite haunts for them. An adult moorhen gives the alarm as a young bird calls and makes for shelter. The marshy ground around the pits is often frequented by reed buntings. The males sing their simple ditties over and over again from a sedge or spray of sallow. The yellow wagtail is a summer visitor to the areas of rough, damp ground around the gravel pits and sewage farms. This one is calling on the stony floor of the almost completed but still empty William Girling Reservoir at Chingford in Essex in 1951. At some of the older pits and farms, sedge and reed warblers come to breed in the summer months. The sedge warbler has a varied song, full of musical and harsher notes. The distribution of the reed warbler is tied rather closely to that of the common reed. The song is one of many even, repeated phrases, here given against a background of coot and cuckoo. Snipe, drum and chipper and lapwing call and display on many of the sewage farms. In 1938, the little ringed plover bred in Britain for the first time. About 30 years later, some 230 pairs were nesting by the sides of gravel pits on areas of industrial waste and stony flashes in 26 counties. This is the typical call recorded just outside London. On the nest, the hen little ring plover has a very characteristic note. When the adults have young, they use a rhythmical series of pip-pip-pip calls. The male little ring plover has a delightful butterfly-like display flight in which it gives its song tria, tria. Many other wading birds use the gravel pits and sewage farms on migration, but some, like the snipe, lapwing and redshank, may breed. The musical songs of the redshank can often be heard in springtime. During the autumn migration, the closely related greenshank may come singly or in small parties to rest and feed. Among the migrants are sometimes curlew, whimbrel, godwit, sanderling, little stints, grey plovers, ruffs, and various sandpipers. A rare sandpiper from America, the petrel, can sometimes be found on sewage farms. One other habitat at the urban fringe needs to be mentioned, that of wasteland with scrub and hawthorn, found around industrial sites, pits, riverbanks, and in similar situations. Where the scrub is thick, south of the highland zone, turtle doves may be found. In summer, the waste areas and scrub can be alive with the voices of the doves, as well as those of wren and yellowhammer, while most of the time there's also the constant murmur and hum of insects' wings. One bird species that can be found in every urban habitat from the centre outwards is the starling, and it's fitting that I should end this disc with the sound of thousands of these birds settling into their winter roost east of London.